David Henry Hwang's Butterfly, 1988, is a critically acclaimed play that won the Tony Award for Best Play and was a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize for Drama. Inspired by the true story of Bernard Borsco, a French diplomat, and Shi Pei-pu, a Chinese opera singer and spy, the play interrogates Western assumptions about Asia, gender roles, and power through a dramatic reimagining of Puccini's opera Madama Butterfly. Blending political critique with intimate psychological drama, Hwang's play deconstructs the Orientalist fantasy of the submissive Asian woman and exposes how cultural myths and personal delusions can blind individuals to reality. Through the tragic arc of its protagonist, Butterfly becomes a story not just of espionage, but of self-deception, colonialist ideology, and sexual identity. Framing device. The play opens in Paris in the early 1980s in a prison cell. René Gallimard, a former French diplomat, narrates his story from confinement. He reflects on his life, particularly his two-decade relationship with a Chinese opera singer, Song Liling, who turned out to be both a man and a spy for the Chinese government. The play unfolds as a series of memory scenes, with Gallimard as an unreliable narrator trying to understand how he was deceived and what it reveals about himself and the world he inhabited. Act 1. Seduction and Fantasy. René Gallimard is introduced as an unremarkable French bureaucrat, posted to Beijing in the 1960s. Lonely and insecure, he becomes captivated by Song Liling, a beautiful Chinese opera singer who performs the role of Xiao San, Butterfly, in Madama Butterfly. Song embodies the image of the demure, delicate Asian woman that Gallimard has long romanticized. Gallimard begins courting Song, who initially resists but eventually consents to a secret romantic and sexual relationship. Song insists on modesty and refuses to undress fully, playing into Gallimard's fantasy of feminine mystery and submission. As their relationship deepens, Gallimard becomes increasingly enthralled. His professional life also improves, partly due to the information Song provides, information that turns out to be state-controlled disinformation. Act 2. Revelation and Betrayal. Over the years, Gallimard and Song maintain a relationship. Gallimard, now back in Paris, marries a woman named Helga, but continues to correspond and dream of Song. Eventually, Gallimard is accused of espionage, leaking sensitive information to the Chinese via Song. It is revealed that Song was not only a spy, but also a man who disguised himself as a woman and never actually had sex with Gallimard. For over 20 years, Gallimard believed that Song was a woman who loved him, fully unaware of the political manipulation and gender deception at play. In court, Song testifies, explaining how he performed the role that Gallimard wanted him to play. He critiques the Western fantasy of the submissive Oriental woman and confesses that he simply gave Gallimard what he wanted, a perfect illusion. Final scene. Gallimard's transformation. In prison, Gallimard reflects on his humiliation, betrayal, and self-delusion. He confronts his longing for fantasy and his complicity in perpetuating imperialist myths. In the final, tragic scene, Gallimard reenacts the death of Xiao San from Madama Butterfly, donning a kimono and stabbing himself. The play ends with Gallimard becoming the butterfly himself, reversing the original narrative and exposing the devastating cost of illusion. Character analysis. René Gallimard. Gallimard is the tragic protagonist, a man whose need to believe in a romanticized ideal blinds him to truth. He is insecure, sexually repressed, and drawn to traditional gender roles where he can feel dominant. His desire for power and intimacy mirrors France's waning imperial power. Through Gallimard, Hwang explores how personal fantasies intersect with political ideologies. Gallimard is not just deceived by Song, but by the cultural myths he internalized. His downfall is not caused by betrayal, but by his inability to see the world clearly. By the end, Gallimard transforms from a man who believed he was the dominant Westerner to someone who embraces his own vulnerability and becomes the tragic figure he once fetishized. Song Liling. Song is a complex and compelling character, a performer in every sense. He is a Chinese spy, a male opera singer trained in female roles, and a master manipulator who uses Gallimard's Orientalist fantasies to extract information. But Song is also a victim of his own performance. In the trial scene, he reveals the cost of living in disguise for so long. His seduction of Gallimard is not purely political, it becomes emotionally entangled and ambiguous. Song's famous line, "You think I could have pulled this off if he didn't want to believe it?" lays bare the collaborative nature of self-deception, indicting not just Gallimard, but the Western gaze itself. Themes. 1. Orientalism and Western imperialism. Hwang's most prominent critique is of Orientalism, the Western construction of Asia as passive, exotic, and feminine. Drawing on Edward Said's theories, the play shows how Westerners often project their desires and fears onto the East, turning it into a canvas for fantasy. Gallimard's relationship with Song is a metaphor for colonial domination. He sees himself as Pinkerton from Madame a Butterfly, the Western man seducing the submissive Asian woman. But Hwang reverses this fantasy. Song is not submissive, not female, and not powerless. This inversion exposes the fragility and falsity of imperialist identity. Gallimard's sense of masculinity and superiority is built on illusion. 2. Gender and performance. Butterfly is a profound meditation on gender as performance. Song performs femininity so convincingly that Gallimard, despite years of intimacy, never questions it. The play suggests that gender roles are socially constructed acts, not innate truths. Hwang undermines fixed binaries: man, woman, east, west, strong, weak. Song's manipulation of Gallimard works because it aligns with deeply ingrained gender expectations. Gallimard's final transformation, donning a kimono and embodying Seo-Seo-san, symbolizes a collapse of these binaries and a recognition of his own feminine vulnerability. 3. Fantasy versus reality. Gallimard chooses illusion over reality at every turn. He ignores evidence, rationalizes contradictions, and clings to a narrative that places him in control. His downfall comes not because Song is a master deceiver, but because Gallimard needs to believe the lie. The play thus explores the human tendency to believe comforting untruths, especially when they reinforce power and identity. The tragedy is not just in the deception, but in the self-deception that makes it possible. 4. Love and betrayal. While the play is deeply political, it is also a love story, albeit a twisted and tragic one. Gallimard genuinely loves Song, or rather, the version of Song he constructs. Song's feelings are more ambiguous. His manipulation is strategic, but over time, genuine affection may have emerged. Their relationship raises questions. Can love exist when based on illusion? Is betrayal always conscious and malicious, or can it be a byproduct of survival and self-creation? By the end, love becomes a double-edged weapon, capable of elevating and destroying. Symbolism and allusions. 1. Madame a Butterfly. Puccini's opera is the central intertext. In the opera, Seo-Seo-san, a Japanese geisha, is seduced and abandoned by an American naval officer, Pinkerton. She waits faithfully for his return and eventually commits suicide when she is discarded. Hwang deconstructs this narrative, revealing its racist and sexist underpinnings. By casting Gallimard as Pinkerton and Song as Butterfly, only to reverse them, he critiques the Western romanticization of Eastern submission. 2. The Butterfly. The butterfly symbolizes femininity, fragility, and tragic beauty, all qualities Gallimard projects onto Song. But the butterfly is also an illusion, a constructed role. Gallimard's desire to possess the butterfly leads to his own destruction, highlighting the danger of fetishizing and objectifying others. 3. The trial. The courtroom scene functions as a ritual of exposure. Song strips away Gallimard's illusions and performs his masculinity with aggression and clarity. It is the public unmasking of both personal and political lies. Style and structure. Hwang's use of nonlinear storytelling allows Gallimard to narrate from the present while moving through his memories. This structure emphasizes the subjectivity and unreliability of memory and narration. The play shifts in tone, from comedy to tragedy, realism to fantasy, often blending past and present, east and west. The use of opera music, direct address, and theatrical layering gives the play a meta-theatrical quality, inviting the audience to examine how stories are told, performed, and consumed. Hwang's language is elegant, ironic, and sharp. He uses satire to critique cultural myths and poetic dialogue to explore emotional truth. Historical and cultural context. Butterfly premiered in 1988, during a time of growing awareness about multiculturalism, gender identity, and post-colonial theory. Hwang, as an Asian American playwright, brought a new voice to the American stage, challenging Eurocentric narratives and exposing the exoticism faced by Asians in Western art and life. The real-life case of Borsko and Shi Pei Pu shocked the world for its incredible mix of espionage, love, and gender deception. Hwang uses this case not for sensationalism, but to delve into deeper truths about identity, ideology, and the costs of fantasy. The play also responds to a century of Western opera and literature that depicted Asian characters through racist and sexist tropes. By revising Madame Butterfly, Hwang reclaims the narrative and offers a counterpoint grounded in truth and agency. Critical reception and legacy. Butterfly was a critical and commercial success. It ran for nearly 2 years on Broadway and has since been staged globally. The play won the 1988 Tony Award for Best Play. Was a Pulitzer Prize finalist. Sparked academic discourse on race, gender, and Orientalism. Inspired a 1993 film adaptation directed by David Cronenberg. It remains a staple in theater studies and is widely taught in courses on post-colonial literature, gender studies, and Asian American culture. In 2017, Hwang revised the play for a Broadway revival to reflect new understandings of gender and trans identity, incorporating more nuanced views on Song's character and expanding the political context. Conclusion. David Henry Hwang's Butterfly is a masterwork of cultural criticism, dramatic art, and psychological inquiry. It interrogates how power, gender, and race intersect to shape desire and perception. At once intimate and epic, the play lays bare the consequences of believing in beautiful lies. By deconstructing the Orientalist fantasy of Madame Butterfly, Hwang not only reverses its tragic ending but also challenges us to confront our own assumptions about identity, love, and the stories we tell ourselves about others. Ultimately, Butterfly is not just about deception, but about the desperate need to believe in illusions, and the tragic cost of holding onto them.